Carol, thanks for joining us today here at Vale Park. Just tell us, Carol, a little bit about what's happened today here at the Vale. You've had a meeting with all the staff at the club.
We have. We're sat here in the Valiant Suite, and about an hour ago all of the staff that are in the building today were all here. It was really to give them an update, and the point, well, first of all I had to start off because I'd heard just as I came into the room, somebody had said to me, "Oh, you're making an announcement, is it that you and Kevin are getting divorced?" So I came in on the stage and said that I'd heard this, and Kevin clapped a little too quickly, a little bit too enthusiastically, really, but I can promise you it was not that. We are still very happy, thank you very much. No, but it was a bit about Kevin, because I said, and I've said this publicly a number of times now, that when we decided to buy the football club, it came on the back of me saying to Kevin, if we really, really want to help Burslem in this area, then we will go and make Port Vale successful. And he said, how? And I said, well, I've no idea. You know, we'll go and work it out. And we've been here now for 4 years working it out. And I'm not saying that we've got all the answers, we haven't, but we've learned a lot in that 4 years. And we got to a point now where we've done our first year in League One. And we wanted to set up the structure of the club to move us forward, and it's really important to us that Port Vale as an organisation is very together, that everybody knows where they fit into the organisation, and so it was to make those sort of announcements is probably a bit grand. It was more to inform the staff of what we were doing and give them the opportunity to all hear the same thing at the same time, but also to be able to ask questions and to see where they fit into the organisation moving forward. So
you met with the staff today as well, Carol, and you've talked about the sort of plan that you've got in place and that structure you mentioned as well. What does that sort of structure look like?
Okay, so unlike a lot of football clubs with their owner or chair, I'm very much an executive chair, so what that means is that I'm here most days, so I'm very operational, which is more than, as I say, most chairs are, but here the way that I've set it up is that the support around me is finance, HR, and then we've got Ben, who's my PA, who's going to be working a lot more in making sure the club operationally is efficient. So, you know, what meetings have we got? Are the meetings being, are the actions from the meetings actually happening? You know, so it's that whole side of are all the departments working together. Ben's really, really good at that. And then there's Patrick, who has been working with all of the department heads on strategy, so the 5-year strategy for the club. So we spoke earlier about the strategy on the pitch. This is the strategy off the pitch, and so what do we want to be doing in the next 5 years? So each department will be its own like profit and loss. It's, you know, what money are you bringing in, what money are you spending, and how does that spend fit into the overall plan for the club. So that'll be very much Patrick's area. He's learnt a lot in the last 4 years about how football clubs work. And then the other 8 departments, because there's really 10 altogether, the other 8 departments are in 3 areas. One is football, so anything that touches the ball is Dave Flitcroft, and so the first team, the academy, and also the grounds, so the pitch, so the ground staff will work for Dave, because the grounds it touches the ball. You know, the only reason we have a pitch is because we have football, so it's important that comes under the director of football, so the decisions about the pitch are made from a football lens. I think that's a big change that we wanted to make. If it affects people, then that's Matt Hancock, who joined us in January, and he is, his actual title is Community and CSR Director, but he covers the foundation, but also comms and commercial. And so that, again, is anything to do with people is Matt. And then anything to do with the stadium is Claire. And we're just changing her title slightly. She's been called Chief Operating Officer, but that's not really quite the title for us. So she's just going to be Operations Director. And that is anything to do with the stadium. So is it safe? So the safety team, Wayne Jones is our safety officer, and he will work directly for her, and also the stadium itself and the venue, so the hospitality, the kitchen staff, so operationally anything to do at Vale Park is Claire. So it's very, very simple. 3 areas. Does it touch a football, Dave Flitcroft? Does it affect people? Matt, is it to affect the stadium? Claire. And then all the departments work for those 3. But it means that everybody knows very simply where they work, but that we all work together. But that's the announcement that I made today, is the changes to the operations board and just the way that we're going to work executively.
And is that the major benefit as well with that you're making those sort of simple lines of, for want of a better phrase, sort of accountability or focus, etc. I guess bringing that business knowledge that you've developed over many years as well, that sort of key focus for people can be helpful for everyone within the club.
Yeah, it's interesting. I was talking to Debbie Hewitt from the FA, so she's chair of the FA, and I was asking her about what surprised her since she joined the FA, and she was talking about the complexity of football. It's different. The organisations within football are different to organisations out of it, which are pretty simple, really. Whereas with football, it's like you've got a group of companies. And they are all together, and keeping that focus on, we are a football club, and that's what we're about, and we wouldn't be here if we didn't play football. But how do you have everybody in a structure that is very, very simple, because it's very easy to complicate it, is to keep it simple and to keep everybody knowing what they're doing and how they fit into the overall plan. And the overall plan is to be successful on and off the pitch with people at the centre of everything we do, so it's being very much within our and we're doing work now on our values and our mission, and we'll be doing some more work with you to tell people how that's going to fit in. But the work now is to work with all 10 areas and to make sure that they are the best run comms team, the best run retail, the best run finance, whatever it is just to make sure that we are focusing on our differences, because we are all different as departments, but then our commonality, which is Port Vale. So how do we bring our differences together to be stronger and in the best interest of the football club? And everything we do has to be in the best interest of Port Vale Football Club. That's why we're here, and that's what we look to do.
I imagine in 4 years, you mentioned there about, you've sort of learnt along the way. I imagine, you've learned a lot. Tell us a little bit about what you have learned in that sort of period, and sort of why you've got to this stage now where you're starting an exciting new chapter almost.
I think this is the first time where we've had chance to really stop and reflect and strategize. When we first came here, again, it's no secret that the stadium was in a far worse condition than we thought it was when we bought it, and that we had to do a lot of work to even get it fit for purpose, to get it so that we could host football matches here. So getting that right at the beginning really took us that time. Within the first season, we had lockdown, so we didn't finish the first season. We had the next season behind closed doors. In that same season, we changed manager and we changed structure there to go to director of football and manager. Then the next season, obviously we had the tragedy with Darryl and Andy stepping in as well as he did, which was really great. But then by the end of the season, we then go and get promoted, but not in a simple way. That wouldn't be a Vale way, to just go and get promoted a simple way. We do it through the playoffs. And I'm really pleased now it's successful that we did do it that way, because we gave the Vale fans a day that they will never forget. And that's what we really wanted to do when we bought the club, was to start giving Vale fans new memories, because there's a lot of older memories. But bringing in the day at Man City and then the day at Wembley are two of the big ones that we've brought in. And then this season, this has been a really, really tough season, and we've played incredibly well, particularly up to Christmas. But I've said again, we didn't have League One muscle memory. We didn't have very long to put a team together. We only had about a month before pre-season training began. And so we didn't really have time to stop and think and strategise and what does the next 5 years look like. And that's what we've been doing this season. And now we're sort of making those plans and we're putting them in place.
Yeah, because you've spoken a lot, Carol, about building a championship-ready club.
Yeah.
Now, clearly you spoke there about a 5-year sort of plan in place. Now, I know you're not saying we'll be in the championship in 5 years' time. Hopefully we will be. But just tell us a little bit about how that might develop and how we might progress towards being a championship-ready club.
I think there's two things. There's your plan on the pitch and your plan off the pitch. What you can't plan for, and no football club can plan for, is when promotion will come. You can't, because there's elements in there that you cannot control, and if you can't control it, you can't plan for it. You can put everything in place to make it more likely, but you can't say, well, we've got to be in the championship. We will have failed if we're not in the championship in X amount of years. You can't do that. So when I said straight away, we now have got to work towards being a championship club or championship ready club, that wasn't, and we need to get promoted this season or next season. It wasn't that at all. It was, this isn't the end of the journey. This, get into League One. Patrick he refers to it as like getting to base camp, really. So we got there. Now we've got to go and climb the mountain. And the mountain from League One into the championship is a lot more than it is from League Two to League One. So how do we do that? And how do we make sure that when we get into the championship, that we're ready, that we're ready in every area? And whether it's the kiosks or the stadium or the medical department or the academy, whatever it is, the whole lot has got to move forward together, and we've got to be ready to be in the championship. And we may get into the championship before we're fully ready, and it'll be fine. We'll get on with it. But that's got to be our direction of travel, is that we are first of all getting steady in League One, making sure that we're okay, that we've got everything that we need, and we're building and we're growing, but the trajectory is towards the championship. We haven't got the ambition to remain a steady mid-table League One club. That isn't what we want. We want to keep moving forward, but we don't want to do it at a pace that is unhealthy. We want to have a healthy football club, both on and off the pitch.
Does that come a little bit back to January? Because I think Flicker said at the fans forum that there was a couple of targets you perhaps missed out on, and you perhaps might have looked to grow a little bit. But did you have to be quite pragmatic in sort of your approach then in January? Because clearly at this club we've been used to quite heavy windows in terms of player trading in and out throughout the windows.
Yeah, we did, and I think this process had really begun then. This began in probably November, December. We were starting to look. We were looking at how much money the Shanahans have put into Port Vale. And we had an aim of how much we would put in over 5 years. And we've spent that and more before 4 years. And what we were looking at was, hang on, if you carry on at this rate, we are spending far more than we ever, expected to put in, because you do have a target of what you want and what is acceptable, from your own funding, and it was that really made us stop. And I know it seemed a bit tough at the time, because everybody thought, are the Shanahans pulling out? Have they run out of money? Don't they care? The rest of it. And it was none of that at all. It was really, come on, we've got to stop here, and we've got to be sensible. We've got to be looking at, what is it we want to achieve? We want to achieve a club that really is healthy enough to bring in the funds so that it can fund its own operations. That's what we want, with a healthy first team budget. And then when the Shanahans put money in, that we're putting it in for capital projects, we're putting it in to make the club better on things that we wouldn't be able to afford from our own funding, but from the club's own funding. So it's really important that the club lives within its means whilst always increasing its means. And that's what we've really been putting in place. Now, in the window, there was why don't you go and get lots of targets and then just shoot for the championship? And that would not have been, to me, that would not have been the right time to do that. We did actually have a successful window because, yes, a couple of players moved that weren't getting onto the team sheet. One left, Connor left to move nearer home, so he left for his own personal reasons. But we did bring in a couple of players. We brought in Matty Taylor, an hour left in the transfer window. We had the whole thing there. And he's scoring. He's doing really well. We had Aaron Donnelly come in on loan, and again, he's been really good. So, it wasn't as if the club went back during that window. It was more of a steadying one for us than it was, right, we're just going to throw everything at it. You've seen that happen in football, and it's not a healthy way to be.
No, and you've spoken a lot about, you certainly bear the weight of that responsibility of being the custodian of sort of Port Vale Football Club, and there where you spoke about that sort of capital expenditure on projects, I guess this summer you've got a big window, you've just spoken about that you haven't been blessed with before to really plan and do some works. Can you give us an insight into the sort of things you might be looking at doing over the course of this summer? Yeah,
this summer is all about the centre of the stadium, really, for me. It is, the scoreboard, our poor scoreboard, it's more or less, it is on its last legs. It can more or less tell us who we're playing and what score it is, but its end has come, and so that the scoreboard will go. Richie Bates, who's our head of commercial, he has been working with a company to provide us with a good scoreboard, which when you go to away matches and you can see, you can just see the goal that's been scored, you can see that being replayed or things like that, and you think, wow, that's the kind of thing we want. So we've got a new scoreboard come in. The pitch absolutely has to have work done to it. We want to have work done to it. It isn't going to be the full dig everything up on this occasion, but what it is, we've been doing a lot of work about the structure of the pitch. There's 40 drains at the bottom of the pitch, and some of those need replacing, and so there's quite a lot of work to do on the substructure, so that I know more about grass and pitches than I ever felt I needed to know, but when we go for the complete rebuild of the pitch, the complete replacement, the work that we're doing this season will be incorporated into that. So it's not as if we're doing anything now which then will have that we will then lose when we replace the whole thing. But you will notice a big difference next season. So we're limping along to get through to the end of this season with this pitch, but then it will be a lot more. So that's been our two major focuses, and obviously the stand swap of putting the home fans into Hamel and setting the fan zone up there, so we have the permanent fan zone, and putting a starter fan zone into the away end. It's not going to be the all singing, all dancing, but it's going to be sufficient for next season.
Without continually going backwards, you mentioned the pitch there and about the foundations. Is that a little bit symbolic of your sort of journey at Port Vale, that perhaps you've discovered things over time. You said about learning, but even within the facilities as well, that you've almost, perhaps things you didn't anticipate, and even with the pitch, it's not as simple as just laying the new grass on. There is challenges within the foundations of which it's on as well.
Yeah, I always describe it as like buying an old house, and you buy it and you think you know what you're buying when you move in, and then you get in there and you realise that the damp-proof course has gone and it needs rewiring and it needs replumbing. And it's all these things that cost an awful lot of money, and you don't seem to have any benefit for it at the end because it all looks the same. But it is the structure which has got to be done, and that's what you then build on. And that's what we've been doing and continue to do. And yeah, there's been so much more. Everything that you do, it has a knock-on effect on something else. And the lack of investment, for decades really shows in certain areas, and the pitch is one of them.
Fast forwarding then now to present day, we obviously have 7 games to go in the remainder of the season. Easter weekend coming up. Let's hope we can build some positive momentum between now and the end of the season. But in terms of season ticket sales, could you just give us an update on where season tickets are at, and from your perspective, how important the supporters have been, especially this season, home and away? They've been outstanding. They
have, and you look at our average home gate has doubled in the time that we've been here, from the number of fans that used to come in when we first bought the club. What really pleases me is how many more families come in now, the young really bringing in the youth and getting kids into the ground, because they are the veil of the future. I know it's a cliche, but it's true. You can't have an aging fan base. You have to be, whatever age you are really important. But it is really, you have to be bringing in the families, and I want it to be, a family friendly. We're a family friendly club, and we want that to be in match days. I'm delighted with the season tickets sales, particularly in Hamel Road, because that was a big move for us to take the home and the away fans and to swap them over, and I'm pleased that we were late in doing it, but I'm really pleased that we were able to work with the Bicars supporters, and that we are able to give them that flexibility of for all of our fans, that wherever they buy their season tickets, if they do want to move to somewhere else within the ground, we're giving them till the beginning of September to be able to do that. And I'm pleased about that, because it's one of those things I think you're not going to really know until you've experienced it. It's important that people who want to spread the cost of their season tickets, I think we've got until April the 21st, I believe it is, so to get that ordered, and then you can pay over time, and then you've got different times when you've got your early bird prices. So we've been able to offer a good value price, again, which I'm really, really pleased about.
Yeah, because that's always been important to you as well, hasn't it? You've always been really mindful of the economic challenges facing everyone. I guess when we spoke as a group about season tickets, it was important to you that we remained one of the most competitive sort of prices in the EFL, really, in terms of season tickets, and making it as inclusive as possible and accessible as possible for all supporters. Yeah,
and you have the balance with this, because people will say to me, oh, look at Bradford, they charge £150 and they get so many tens of thousands. But they're a city with one club, and they've got one pool which they go and get their supporters club from. We are we're the smallest city in the country with 2 EFL teams, and so you're not, if we put our prices down to 150, we're not going to get that increase at the same rate as a club like Bradford would get. But equally, we have fans that will struggle to fund within their money to be able to buy tickets and come. So you've got to get the pitch right, because the club needs money. And it has to be healthy and self-sufficient to be a well-run football club, which is what we want to be. You've got fans who can afford it, so that's fine. You then need to make sure you're giving them value for money. There's fans that can't afford it, and we do a lot of work. Super Vale away are amazing. Super Vale abroad, rather, not away. Super Vale abroad are amazing because they give us money to help fans who can't afford it. And I know the foundation do that as well. So it's we've got to go into the fans that need some support and give them the support, and then give them value for money as well. So it's getting that right. And then offer more options on hospitality as well. We get a lot of people coming to us because it's somebody's significant birthday or there's some event and they want to come and have hospitality for the day. And this year, Richie and his team have been able to offer a lot more options. Having the Robbie's room and moving a lot of box holders into there, where they've really enjoyed that, has enabled us to put the Valiant Suite as 3-course dine-in and a whole match day experience within here, which has been better, So again, it's somewhere where we're moving towards being championship ready in what we're offering as match day hospitality.
I was just listening to you there, and you were talking about the Port Vale family almost. It felt like, and I know you really enjoyed the poem from Nick Degg as well.
Oh,
which
I
really
loved it.
Summed up the Port Vale family.
Yeah, and I loved when we played it. We played it before on that next match, didn't we? And it's just so good. I mean, we're very lucky to have people like Nick as Vale supporters. We've got Payne, so we've got artists, we've got poets. We're a broad church, is the Valiant.
And just to finish, I don't know how much you'll be able to tell us on this, but it was said that discussions, we put a release out just recently, the discussions have started on the Port Vale campus as well, which sounds really exciting in its sort of early stages. Yes,
it is. We're unusual. There's only us and Barnsley that have our training at the stadium. And to begin with, Dave Flitcroft and Darryl were... well, to say they were unsure would be being nice. They were absolutely against us having our training ground at the stadium. But both of them now are very pro it because they can see that as a club, that's part of being together. In fact, the players are saying, because we've got the training zone now where the players are during the week, I've got players saying, but we don't see everybody anymore, so we're making sure that we are getting in to see them. So it works for us as a club to have our training ground there. But there's a lot more that could be done with the facilities at Sprosome Park and over to Dimensions, and working with the council. We'll be able to increase that, and we'll be able to make it a lot better.
Just to finish, a final message, 7 games to go. Let's hope we can finish the season strongly.
Yes, I mean, Saturday it hurt. I've spoken to the players, I've spoken to Andy Crosby and Darryl, and it certainly wasn't the Port Vale that we've seen during this season, and so they've been doing a lot of work. I know Darryl has spoken to all the players, well, so has Andy, well, so have I. We've all been talking to each other to try and work out what happened and why, because it wasn't in character, it wasn't us, and really excited. We're going to see Andy Holt at Accrington on Friday, and go and have a look at their new facilities, because it was actually their bar which inspired us for Robbie's. So it'll be nice to go there, but it'll also be nice to go and perform on the pitch, for definite.
Brilliant. Thanks for your time, Carol.
It's a pleasure.